PaaS application server. In the previous section, we looked at PaaS, platform as a service. In this section, let's look at PaaS, platform as a service, application server concepts. What does it mean to have a managed application server? As part of this section, we will look at the managed application server concepts. We look at the features of managed application server. When I say managed, it's the cloud-based managed application server. We look at things like multi-tenancy, scale, cost model, security, application deployment, and how PaaS helps in the development process. So basically in this section, we're trying to figure out what are the capabilities, what are the features that a cloud-based application server must provide for us. So you're ready to roll. You're ready to roll your own e-commerce application. You want to deploy it in the cloud. You have two options. You can roll your own application server, or you can use a managed application server. If you have to roll your own application server, then you have to procure the hardware. But if you're in the cloud environment and the hardware is available, then of course you have to launch the server then. You have to install the application server. You have to install the software. You have to configure monitoring. You have to configure logging. You have to configure the load balancers. And then you deploy the application. But then even after that, what about upgrade? What if you have to upgrade your hardware? What if you have to upgrade your server? What if you have to upgrade your operating system, your application server, monitoring tools? So there is a lot to it when it comes to rolling your own application server. Now, people do it, but people spend a lot of time. Enterprises spend a lot of time managing their own application server. And when you manage your own application server, it's easy to miss out on stuff, right? It's almost like building your own chair from a product from IKEA. You always realize that you have a few bits left over and you don't know exactly if you did everything right or wrong. So you can miss out on things. A better idea would be to go for a managed application server. In such a model, the application server is available for you, ready to use. You don't really have to install anything, and so you primarily concentrate on the business logic and you deploy to your managed application server. So if you are to get a managed application server, then the question is, what does a managed application server instance have? What features may it have? And what are the capabilities that you should be looking for when you're selecting a managed cloud environment or a managed application server cloud environment? It should have the ability to launch environments. You should be able to launch multiple environments, dev, QA environments, production environments. You should have the ability to choose from one of many platforms. You should have the ability to choose from one of many different application servers that might be available. You should have the ability to choose from one of many frameworks, choose from one of many programming languages, ability to build multi-tier applications, ability to build synchronous applications, ability to build asynchronous applications, ability to scale the environment. So there is a lot to it when it comes to going to a managed application server environment and choosing an environment that best fits for you. In the next section, I'm going to show you various PaaS application server cloud providers and how different cloud providers may have different options for you, but you want an environment where you can make a choice. Now let's look at the various capabilities in a little bit more detail. We said that we should have the capability to create environments. Well, what does that mean? We should be able to create and launch multiple environments. We should be able to create development environments for the various developers, QA environments, performance and scalability environments, staging environments, and of course production environments. We should be able to create environments that are simple environments for developers and for testing, which may be a non-load balanced, no load balancer based environment. For example, you may just want to have an application server in the cloud so you can develop and demonstrate your code. You may also be able to build complex environments for staging and productions. These complex environments would be highly scalable environments with load balancer. So you have a load balancer and you have multiple application servers to which the load balancer is forwarding requests. You should be able to do that too. You should be able to choose an application platform. Many cloud vendors give you a choice to choose an application platform. You may want to choose open source application server platforms. Some cloud providers would give you open source app server platforms like the Java EE platforms, Node.js platforms, Rails platform. You may choose from some of the commercial app server platforms like the Microsoft .NET platform, or may go with a cloud provider that may support a proprietary platform like the Google App Engine by the Google PaaS provider. You may want to choose one of various application server frameworks. An application server vendor may offer open source frameworks like Java EE, Flask, Rails, Django, Spring frameworks. They may support commercial frameworks like Microsoft .NET. They may support a proprietary framework like the Google App Engine. And you should be able to choose one of these different things, one of these different frameworks. An application server vendor may support open source application server such as Apache, Tomcat, JBoss, Vertex, Node.js, and Nginx. They may support commercial application servers like Microsoft IIS. They may even support a proprietary application server like the Google App Engine. A cloud application server vendor may allow you to choose application server version. For example, they may offer several versions of an application server, and you may be able to choose one of several app server versions for your environment. A cloud application server environment may allow you to choose the programming language, and to some extent the programming language actually depends upon the platform that may be supported. For example, if it's Java EE, they may support Java, Groovy, and Scala, or Java only, or Groovy only, or Scala only, or a combination of these things. If it's Node.js, then your JavaScript. If it's .NET, they may support C# and VB. If it's Ruby on Rails, they may support Ruby. If it's PHP, they may support PHP. For Python, it may be the Python language itself. For Google-based, it may be Go, Python, or Java. So it actually depends upon the application server platform, but even within a platform, you may have a choice of language. The cloud-based managed application server vendor may allow you to build a multi-tier application model. That's very important. This is almost a requirement for every application server vendor that is in the cloud. That means you should be able to build your applications where you have presentation logic, application logic tier, and then the management tier to access the various resources. So when I talk about the client, I really mean your browsers or even your custom applications, which may be communicating with the load balancer, talking to the various application servers, and the application that is deployed over here, all the apps that are deployed within the application server. It would have the presentation tier, the application logic tier, and resource management tier. When I say resource management tier, it's the tier that allows you to talk to the database or the queue or the big data platform or the monitoring service. So what you're really seeing is the three tiers: tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. You should be able to build asynchronous or synchronous applications. Let's talk about synchronous applications first. In a synchronous programming model, client sends a request to the server processes the request and sends a response back. It's typically done over HTTP. Your application server should be able to allow you to build an application that supports the HTTPS protocol to build synchronous applications, which is very popular, which is almost everybody does that nowadays. You should also be able to build asynchronous applications. You should be able to have an asynchronous programming model. Now, when it comes to asynchronous programming model, some developers, some architects decide to go with threads, but threads may not be available everywhere, like it's available in the Java environment. In such situations, you may have to resort to using some kind of a messaging framework that may be available as part of an application service that you can associate your application to. So there may be a queuing service that may be available. For example, We have in Amazon SQS, which is the simple queue service that's available, where the clients send a message into a queue where your business logic will pick the messages off the queue and process the messages. When you're looking at cloud-based application server vendors, you should also look at multi-tenancy. How are they providing multi-tenancy? Some application server vendors may give you hardware which is shared by multiple customers. So you're sharing the same OS, same JVM, same database, same middleware, and of course you're launching your applications within the same environment. To an extreme case where the hardware, the database layer, the operating systems, the JVM, the middleware, the applications, and the customers, they're all completely off. So there's a complete range of multi-tenancy that might be there. And so you need to kind of ask your application server vendor, when you evaluate the application server vendor, what exactly are they providing you? And this is not only true just for application server, it's also true for all the services that they may be offering on top of the application server. So multi-tenancy is something to keep in mind. You should also have the ability to scale. You should have the ability to scale manually, or you should have the ability to scale automatically. You have a load balancer and you should be able to add servers on demand as your load increases, as your customers increase. The cost model may also be different. The price may be based upon the number of instances that may be launched, which is the application server instances. It may be based upon commercial server license. For example, if you're using IaaS, the price may include the IaaS fee, or you may have to pay for the Microsoft IaaS server. Price may be tiered based upon the number of requests that are being made. That may be an option. Price information may not be clearly broken down. It may not be transparent. And the price may be based upon multi-tenancy. Like I said, the price calculation may not be transparent at all. So it's really important for you to understand the cost model when you're looking at application server vendor in a cloud environment. When it comes to security, the PaaS provider, the PaaS application server provider, may do everything necessary to secure the platform. But that doesn't mean that your application is secure, because most of the vulnerabilities and security issues happen in the application developers are also equally responsible for making sure that the application is secure and take all the precautions necessary for that. The PaaS application deployment model, you may be able to deploy using a console, the admin console. You may be able to deploy using command line tools that's provided by the vendor. You may be able to deploy using an IDE, such as NetBeans or Eclipse. You may be able to deploy using a provider API. You may be able to do automated deployment right from your source code, from your build environment. So there's a lot of different options that your application server vendor in the cloud may offer for you. The reality is that the PaaS environment helps development process very much. In your early stage development, you want developers to get into a quick, small, self-contained environment where they can develop and test their applications and demonstrate their applications. PaaS providers actually give you that. They give you typically the ability to quickly build a dev environment. And so it solves lots of problems. Typically, developers are building their applications in their own PC or in their own laptop, in their own environment, in their own machines. But now they can demonstrate their work by simply deploying in this common dev environment. They can demonstrate their work. They can demonstrate combined work with other developers. They can demonstrate work to clients outside the firewall, because now you're deploying into a cloud-based environment, and you can set the firewall rules so that they can actually go in and show it to the end customers. Think about how much work you have to go through, how many mails and communication and security checks that you have to go through within your company when you have to open up a firewall rule, when you ask the network guy to open a firewall rule so that you can have your customers access the dev environment. Now you have complete control for all these things. PaaS also helps in testing process. When it comes to test and stage environment, you want to be able to build a quick, consistent production-like environment for deploying your application. And many PaaS providers allow you to build such an environment very quickly. You can even clone existing environments. You can even clone a production environment if you want. So these are some of the great features that we have when it comes to using PaaS for testing purposes. What that means is there are several problems that get solved for testing. You can launch resources to set up 2 or more environments. So you may be testing 2 different versions of the software. You may want to launch environment for performance testing, which may be different from QA. You may want to launch resources to make them production-like. You may want to allow for remote resources to come in. Inter-system testings can be done. The idea here is that you can do so much because now you can launch environments on the fly. And also finally, you can launch a clean environment. You can shut down the environment and restart a clean environment, run your round of tests, and then shut down the environment. PaaS helps in production process too. For production, the idea is to have minimal cost, highly available, highly reliable, monitored, automated, zero downtime, upgradability environment, which you can now do with PaaS. You can start small and then grow. The PaaS application server solution allows you to build highly scalable environments very, very fast, and you can grow on demand. So it solves several problems for us. Migrate from staging to production. You can have multiple environments. You can switch between these different environments. I'm going to show you some of these examples when we look at a provider, which is the AWS provider. You can scale on demand. You can shut down environments if application is a failure. If you launch your application and if your application is a big bomb, no problem, shut down the environment and walk away. You don't have to really worry about hardware infrastructure failures anymore because the availability is being taken care of for you by the application server vendor. In summary, PaaS application server is a managed application server environment. The PaaS application server has several features that we should be looking for whenever we are selecting an application server vendor in the cloud. Ability to launch environments, multiple environments, choose a platform, Java EE platform or Node.js platform or the Microsoft IaaS platform. Choose application server. For example, you may want to choose Tomcat. You may want to choose a specific version. Choose a programming language. Sometimes the programming language may be tied to the application server. In some cases, it's not. Synchronous programming model versus the asynchronous programming model should be supported. Build multi-tier applications. You should be able to do that. You should be able to scale. We should also be aware of multi-tenancy. Look at the way they are actually giving you the platform. You may want to ask that of your application server vendor. The provider definitely would handle security, which is the platform security. They definitely should do that. But there's a lot of responsibility that's there on the developer when it comes to application security because many vulnerabilities actually take place at the application level. So when it comes to PaaS development, yes, you're using an application server vendor, but you also have to make sure that your application is secure. Cost model depends upon various factors. We looked at that. And you are able to deploy your application using the console, command line, IDE, provider API, different mechanisms to deploy your application. And you should be able to get dev, stage, prod environments very, very fast. You should be able to launch these environments really, really fast. So these are the requirements for a PaaS application server.